Hello, in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to complete the Excel functions exercise. So to begin with, open up the assignment and you'll see the instructions here. And we're going to download this starter file. And then once that's downloaded, we'll open that up. And once that's opened, we want to click on the Enable Editing button. So maximizing that window, clicking on the Enable Editing button. And that'll open up this workbook that has uh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 workbooks or worksheets rather. And on each one, is a green box that has the instructions on how to complete that worksheet. And in this one, the instructions say to use the AutoSum function button to populate cells C15, C or F15, I15, J or L15, and O15, which are the ones that are highlighted in yellow here. So we'll start with this first one, which is the total. So we've got just some very generic products A through M and the amount of sales for each of those products in column C. So we want to total that up. So we're going to use this AutoSum function button. So click on the AutoSum function button. And if we click on just the AutoSum button, it'll insert the sum function and it'll automatically assume that we want to total the cells C2 through C14, which in this case is what we want to do. So we can just hit enter and that'll total them. Now for the average, which is in F15, we want to use that auto sum button again, but this time I'm going to click on the arrow just to the right there. And because we want the average, we're going to choose the average function. And it'll again assume that we want to average the cells that are adjacent and above that cell. And then we can hit enter. And then for the min, we're going to go back up to the auto sum button, click on that arrow, and we're going to use the min function and hit enter. And that'll return the minimum or the lowest number in that column. So if we scan the column I there, we can see that 148 is the lowest number. Then for the max, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go up here to the auto sum button, click on the button to the right there. This time we'll choose the max function. And again, it'll assume that we want to do the cells that are adjacent and above that cell. Hit enter. And 871 should be the highest number in that column, which if we scan the column, looks like it is. And then for the count function, this will count how many different products we have, assuming that the cell to the right of the product is not blank. So we can go up here and click on the AutoSum pull down and this time choose the count numbers and then hit enter and there's 13. So if we were to count these letters, there's 13 of them. Okay, now we're on to the AutoSum 2 worksheet. And this time it's organized a little bit different. We have the same data for all the products A through M and the sales associated with those products in column C. But over here now, instead of being underneath the columns, it's over to the right. So we're going to have to do it a little bit differently. We're going to use the same function. So we're going to select cell F2, which is the first one that we need to populate. And this time we're going to click on the arrow and choose the sum function. But you'll notice now it chooses C2 through E2. That's not what we want. We want to select cells C2 through C14. So we can just hit enter and we'll get the same number that we got for the first column here on the AutoSum worksheet. Okay. And the same thing for average. We're going to do this AutoSum button. This time we're going to choose average. That's not the range of cells that we want to average. So we're going to choose the ones that we do want, which is C2 through C14, and then hit enter. And the same thing for the min function. Select the min function, then select the range of cells that you want to find the minimum for, hit enter. And the max, same thing. Go up here, select max, and choose C2 through C14, hit enter, and then the count. We're going to do count numbers, and C2 through C14 is what we want to select. Now I don't have to go up here and click on this range of cells up here to select it. So let's do that again. Let me just show you. So if I go up here and select the sum or the count function. Now see how those numbers are grayed out, but we don't want to count the numbers in F2 through F5. So we can just select the numbers that we do want because those are grayed out. As long as those are grayed out, we can select the range that we do want, and it'll substitute that F2 through F5 with the C2 through C14. Okay, then we're on to the concatenate function. So each one of these functions that we're doing are in the formulas tab in the function library. In this case, they're in the math and trig. So sum is here. Let's see. Yeah, sum is right here. There's sum. But the average, min, max, and count functions are going to be in the more functions category under the statistical functions. So here's the average, and the min will be down further, or max and min will be down here further. There's max, min, and count should also be in here, I think. Yes, there's count. So all except for the sum function, which is how you get the total, are in that statistical category. Okay, so now we're on to the concat function. And with concat, that's going to be a text function. So in the instructions, it says to use that function in column E right here to join the first name from column B with a space and then the last name from column C. Okay, so we're going to start by putting, every time we do a formula, we use the equal sign. And we can start by typing concat. And as soon as we do that, it'll bring up these functions, this function list that we can choose from. So if we double click on the concat function, now it'll show the arguments for the concat function. But if we click on this insert function button here, this f sub x, it'll bring up the arguments it'll bring up this task pane that shows the arguments for the function. So the first argument is going to be a text or a range of text strings. So we're going to choose the first name, Bill, okay? And then we can tab down to the next argument, which is the second text string that we want. In our case, we want a space because it says first name from column B and then a space. So we can just hit the space key there and then tab down. And notice once we hit the tab key, it shows double quote, space, double quote. We don't have to type double quote, space, double quote. All we do is hit the space key and then hit the tab, and it'll Excel will put that in there for you. And then the third text is going to be the last name. So we're going to select C2 for the third text, or text 3 argument. And then we can click OK. And now we can see it took the first name from column B and the last name from column C, inserted a space in between, and we've got the name. So we can use the fill handle to fill down, and now we've got all the names, first and last names. Okay. Now, if we want to get rid of those borders, we can do that. We can just go up to the Home tab and click on in the font sections, click on the borders, and just click No Border. And then it'll look like the correct result column that we want. Okay, then we're on to the payment worksheet. We're going to use the PMT function to calculate the monthly payment for the loan specifications above. Make sure to format your answer as the currency format. Your answer should match the correct result right here, but you must have the correct formula in cell C7. So you can't just copy this correct result over into C7. You have to put the formula to come up with that. So we need to put the equal sign because every formula starts with an equal sign. And then we can go up to our formulas tab here, and in the financial section category, we can look for the payment PMT function and select it there. Or alternatively, we can just start to type PMT and it'll bring up the payment function in the list of functions that meet that string. So then we can double click on that and that'll select that payment function. And once the payment function is selected, it'll show the arguments that are in that function. But if we click on the F sub X insert function button, it brings up this task pane with the arguments, as well as an explanation of what that argument is. So the first one is the rate, which is, according to the description, is the interest rate per period for the loan. For example, use 6% divided by 4 for quarterly payments at 6% annual percentage rate. Okay, so ours, we have the rate here, but we want to divide that by 12 because ours is an annual percentage rate. Okay, in the example that they gave, there were quarterly payments. We're making monthly payments. So instead of dividing the 6% by, or the 4% by 4, we're going to divide it by 12. So we need to put the division symbol and put 12 there. So that's our monthly interest rate. Then if we tab down to the number of periods, the number of periods is the total number of payments for the loan. Okay. So this is a 30-year loan. So we can select that C3, but we're going to be making 12 payments each year. So we need to multiply that by 12. Okay. And that'll give us 360 payments. We can see the result there on the right-hand side. And then for the present value argument, if you either tab down or just click on that cell, is the total amount that a series of future payments is worth now. Okay. Which is really just another way of saying the amount that we're borrowing, which is the loan amount right here. Okay. Now we can tab down to this future value argument, and the future value or cash balance you want to attain after the last payment. So it says it'll assume 0 if omitted. Okay, so we're going to leave that blank because we're going to pay the loan off. We want the amount to be 0 when we're done making all of our payments. And then tab down, and then this is just a logical value to determine whether the payment's at the beginning of the period, which you would put a 1 there, or at the end of the period, which you would put a 0, or it'll assume 0 if you just leave it blank. So we're just going to leave it blank. And then we click OK. Okay, so we get the same result in terms of the number, but in our case, it's a negative number. So to fix that, we can just go up here and in front of the PMT function, we'll put a minus sign and then hit enter. And now it's a positive number. Okay, so we want that to be 1432.25. All right, that completes the payment worksheet. Now for the text to columns, we're going to do kind of the reverse of what we did on the concat worksheet. So first thing we're going to do is select our data, which is cells B2 through B9. And then we're going to go to the Data tab. And over here in the Data Tools section on the Data tab is this Text to Columns feature. And our data is delimited, so we want to make sure that delimited button is selected. And then we can click Next. And on this part of the wizard, we want to make sure that the space is the delimiter. It might have this selected without the space. It might look like this when you do it. Not sure exactly what it's going to look like, but we want to make sure we use the space and then deselect the tab. And then click Next. And it'll just show you here in the data preview what it's going to look like. And then we can click Finish. And then all we have to do is to copy and paste these. So do Control C, or yeah, Control X rather, because we want to cut and paste it. And then put your cursor or active cell as E3, and then just do Control V. And now we've got the first and last names in separate columns. And that's how the text to columns feature works. Now for the next worksheet, the instructions say to use the VLOOKUP function and the price lookup table to populate the price column in the orders table. So over here on the left-hand side, we've got the orders table. On the right-hand side, we've got the price lookup table. It's got the product and the price of the product. And here we have the quantity that was ordered, and which is right here. And over here in column E, we've got a formula that multiplies the quantity ordered in C3 times the price in D3. So we want to use the VLOOKUP function to look up the price of widget 7 or widget 5 or widget 2. So we're going to start by using the equal sign and then start typing VLOOKUP. And as soon as you get the VLO in there, it'll bring up the VLOOKUP function. Double click that, click on the Insert Function button to get the task or the task pane that shows the function arguments. So in our case, our lookup value is going to be, we want to find the price for widget 7 in the first row. And then we want to find it in this table array. So on the table array argument, we want to choose this product and price. So L3 through M11. Okay. And we want that to remain the same when we replicate our formula to the other cells below. So we want to make that a absolute reference. So the way to do that is to just hold down the function key or the FN key, which is down in the bottom left-hand corner of your keyboard, and then press the F4 key up at the top, like that. And that'll put dollar signs in front of the column and row references in that range. Okay, and then we want, then we can tab down to the column index number argument. And the column index number is the column number in the table of array from which the matching value should be returned. So the first column of values in the table is column 1. So in our column 1, our table array, again, remember, is L3 through M11. In column L is the widget name. In column 2, or column M, so column L is column 1, column M is column 2. So we want to use column 2 because that's where we're going to find the price. Remember, this is the column number in the table array from which the matching value should be returned. Okay, so we want the matching value for widget 7. That's going to be this 12, which is in the second column. And we click OK. And now we can see that it did come back with the right price. So widget 7 is $12. Now we can use the fill handle to drag that down, fill it down, and we can check to make sure that this is correct. So widget 5 should be $78, which it is. Widget 2, 20. Widget 1, 13. And widget 5, again, is $78. So we know that that formula is working correctly. And the reason it works correctly is because as we replicated this down, it kept the table array that we're looking at, which is the price lookup table, it kept that constant because we had those as an absolute reference right here. There's the absolute reference to this table. If I highlight it in the formula, it shows that reference. Okay, now we're going to move on to the SUMIF worksheet. And in the instructions, it says, use the SUMIF function to calculate the total quantity and cost. So the total column. Okay, for widget 5 of the orders table. Okay, so we're going to click on here and notice widget 5 is in the table more than once. We've got the order number, the product, quantity, price, and total. And we want to see if we put in widget 5 here, what's the quantity and cost for widget 5. So first thing we're going to do is start with the quantity. So in the quantity, which is cell C9, we're going to type equals to start our formula. And we're going to type SUMIF. And then we're going to double click on the SUMIF function and go up here to the function arguments or insert function. And that'll bring up our task pane that shows the function arguments. Then for the range argument, we're going to select the range of cells that you want evaluated. In our case, we want to search the column B3 through B7 because that's where our product name is. And then we can tab down to the criteria, and the criteria we want is B9. Okay, you can see that resolves to widget 5. And then for the sum range, we want to, in this case, we're looking for the quantity, so we can select the quantity or the column that has the quantity in it, which is in this case C3 through C7. And then we can click OK. Now we can see that widget 5 is in the table twice, once for a quantity of 32 and the second time for a quantity of 123. If we add 32 to 123, we get 155. So the SUMIF function will, and if I change this to like widget 2, it'll come up with the quantity for widget 2. Okay, but we want to change this back to widget 5. So we can just do Control Z, change it back to widget 5. Now we want to do the same thing for the cost. So it's going to be the same thing. We're going to type in equals SUMIF and then double click on that and click on the insert function. And for the range, we're going to look again in the same column that has the product name. And the criteria that we're going to use is the same criteria, which is B9. But in this case, for the sum range, we're going to use the total column. Okay, because we want the cost of the widget 5. Okay, so wherever it's widget 5, we want to take that number and then add those numbers together. Okay, so now if we look at widget 5, it's 2496 plus 9594. That's going to give you 12,090. Again, if we change this to widget 2 now, it'll come up with a different result because widget 2 is in there twice, 56 and 71. So 56 and 71 gives you 127. And if we look at these two numbers, that totals 2043. We can see it down here in the status bar. Okay, so that's how that works. Now we're on to the last one, the worksheet sum product. Okay, so in this case, we're going to use in the instructions, use the sum product function to calculate the total cost, which is quantity times price, of all the widgets in the orders table. So here we're going to type equals. So equals, whoops, equals, and then we're going to type sum product. And once you type sum, you can see the sum product. Double click that, then click on the F sub x to bring up the function arguments task pane. And so we want to multiply the quantity times the price. So this is pretty simple. We just select the column that has the quantity, which is C3 through C7 for array 1, and then the quantity that has the price for the second array, and then click OK. And now that will total, it'll multiply the quantity times the price and then sum them together. That's why it's sum product. Okay. So again, if we did this a little bit differently, we put equals quantity, whoops, right here, so this times, so we use a multiplication operator times price, okay, and we filled that formula down. And then if we put sum here, use the sum function, so we equals sum, open parentheses, and sum these numbers, close parentheses, you get the same number, 14,277. Okay, so you don't have to do this part. I just was showing that to demonstrate how that sum product works. Basically, takes the quantity times the price for each one of these, and then adds them together. Okay, that's it. So all you have to do is save your worksheet, or workbook rather, and then with your initials appended to the beginning of the file name, and then submit that on the assignment right here. You'll have a button on your assignment that'll allow you to submit the file and for grading. And then you're done. Okay, hope that helped. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.